So, something happened recently that no son should ever have to face. A crew pretending to be HOA enforcers came up my 93-year-old mother's driveway and tried to shake her down. When I stepped between them and my mom, they tried to steal her ranch. They picked the wrong family. Before I begin, tell me which country you're watching from. Curious how far this will travel. I've been shot at in 5 different countries, but nothing spikes my blood the way someone threatening my family does. My mother, Evelyn Hart, has called our patch of Texas home for more than 6 decades. The deed is clean, taxes paid, and there's no homeowners association with jurisdiction near our place. That didn't stop 3 men in polo shirts stamped with the words HOA enforcement from marching up our gravel drive with clipboards like they owned the land. Their complaint was ridiculous. My mother's flower beds violated community uniformity standards, and the barn supposedly blocked view corridors. It was nonsense. There is no code that applies here, and no signed agreement gives an HOA any control. Under Texas law, a homeowners association needs a contract with the property owners before it can assert authority, and trespassing on private property is a crime. I told them to leave. The stocky one with wraparound shades shrugged and said, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." That phrase flipped something inside me. Years in the Navy taught me how to calm a situation down, but also how to act decisively if someone decided to escalate. When one of them lunged toward my mother, I stepped forward. I didn't shout or lose my head. I moved with a practiced economy of motion. I caught his wrist, used his momentum, and sent him face first into the gravel. The wiry one tried to grab me from behind. I pivoted and swept his legs out from under him. The third froze briefly, then reached inside his polo like he might be drawing a weapon. I closed the distance and pinned him to the barn before he could pull anything out. That's when the truth came out. Between clenched teeth, the pinned man said, "Your mom's sitting on prime development land. My boss wants it. He sends us to scare folks off. Extortion, trespass, conspiracy." I zip-tied their hands with the plastic ties I always keep in my truck and sat them in the shade while I called the sheriff. My mother sipped tea in the kitchen as if the commotion outside were just another breeze. "They came for the wrong ranch, didn't they?" she asked with a tiny grin. She's 73 in spirit and 93 in stubbornness. The sheriff arrived, watched the body cam footage on my phone, and didn't waste time. The men weren't affiliated with any legitimate HOA. They were tied to a private enforcement outfit working for a developer trying to wrestle property from folks who stood in the way. The deputies took statements and hauled the trio off in patrol cars. But arrests don't always stop the people who hire the muscle. I waited with that reality in the back of my head. If someone was willing to send thugs to the Hart place once, they might try again. So I prepared. The ranch is family history, not a commodity to be liquidated for some quick profit. 2 days later, a black Escalade eased up our road like a predator testing the herd. I planted my boots on the porch and walked out. The driver's door opened and a man in a tailored Navy suit stepped out. Gold cufflinks, 2 clean shoes. He had 2 large men with him who moved like payment had taught them how to push people around. "Mr. Kane," he said, smooth as oil, "there's been a misunderstanding. We can make this go away if your mother is reasonable." "Reasonable?" I repeated, thinking of what he meant. A deed signed for a fraction of its worth. The man said, without any warmth, "Your land's being wasted on cattle and barns. My investors want to develop." He offered a thin smile and implied either money or force would change ownership. He misread me. I closed the distance quickly and shoved him hard enough that his Cadillac's suspension complained. His guards lunged and found themselves on the ground as quickly as their bravado had risen. I called the sheriff while holding them in place. They left in handcuffs. The Escalade was towed. My mother walked onto the porch, tea steaming in her hands, and said in that dry voice of hers, "So we aren't selling then?" "No," I said. "Not today, not ever. But this is just the beginning." After the arrests, I knew the men we'd seen were only the teeth of a much larger mouth. Muscle is bought cheap when the checks clear, and the people writing those checks don't get their hands dirty. They send others to do the work. I set about building a paper trail. There are more ways to fight a predator than with your fists. I pulled county property records, spoke with neighbors, and contacted a lawyer who specialized in land disputes. The paperwork was deliciously boring. Deeds, covenants, old tax rolls. But the dry pages began to show a shape, a pattern of interest, of options filed, of corporate names that traced back to the same development group. That group's phone calls and scheduling were the threads that tied the men in polo shirts and the suited fixer to a boardroom somewhere in town. We filed complaints with the sheriff's office and the county attorney. The lawyer sent cease and desist letters and began drafting a civil suit for attempted coercion, trespass, and conspiracy. The idea was to make the cost of harassment higher than the price of land. It would be messy, public, and slow, the kind of thing predators hate. In the meantime, the community rallied. Folks came by with casseroles, with offers to sit on the porch, and with cameras. Neighbors who had once shrugged when heavy vans rolled through their lanes now started asking questions. People talk when they're nervous, and a developer who stomps on one family will soon learn the neighborhood is watching. There were threats beyond the legal and the physical. One night someone shot through a storage shed that sits out by the east fence. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. Intimidation ratchets up when you fight back. I upgraded motion lighting, repaired the shed, and left a trail of visible cameras. Fear has a way of evaporating under light. The sheriff's office continued to investigate. Deputies interviewed men who'd been seen driving rental trucks that matched descriptions of vehicles used in the harassment. The county attorney began looking at corporate filings. The community's attention turned the story from one family's drama to a cautionary tale about development tactics. We also started documenting everything more formally. Dates, times, names, photographs, videos. My mother kept a log in a notebook with an unflappable handwriting that dates back decades. Each entry was another brick in the case we were building. And life went on. Hay still needed baling, the chickens still wanted feeding, and my mother still insisted that the rose bushes be trimmed on Thursday mornings. Normalcy is a stubborn, necessary thing when someone tries to make your life unbearable. There were hearings. There were motions. There were depositions where men in suits tried to act as if intimidation is merely the way the marketplace clears. We answered each legal gambit with evidence, testimony, and the stubborn refusal to be bullied into silence. The day the county attorney called to say they were ready to move forward, I felt something like relief, but not because I trusted the wheels of government to always turn quickly. It was relief because our side had prepared to be patient, methodical, and loud. The developers' plans were public. Citizens showed up at hearings. Local journalists wrote stories. The more light the case got, the more complicated it became for the people behind the harassment to continue their playbook. The court filings were damning. Emails where the developer's third-party contractors discussed pressuring elderly owners, invoices for surveillance equipment, and bank records that showed payments to private enforcement vendors. A judge put an injunction in place to prevent any further contact with my mother's property. Criminal charges for trespass and extortion followed for the men who had come to our gate. In civil court, the developer tried to portray the harassment as isolated incidents, the result of rogue contractors. But the paper trail said otherwise. The jury saw the video of the 3 men in polos, the witnesses who testified to being offered hush money, and the ledger of communications that pointed to a coordinated effort to bully property owners into selling. When the verdict came down, it wasn't just a small victory. The court awarded damages and issued permanent restrictions against the developer and its enforcement partners. There were fines that hit where it hurts, in the balance sheets, and injunctions that barred the company from contacting residents. Those wins didn't erase the nights of worry, the bullet hole patched in an old shed, or the taste of being told your life is a commodity. But the outcome taught something important. The cost of bullying people out of their homes can be made to exceed any short-term gain. On the day the tow trucks came for the black Escalade, a crowd had gathered on our porch and along the lane. My mother stood there in her cardigan, a little son on her shoulder, and watched the machines haul the vehicle away. She sipped her tea, looked at me, and said with that familiar grin, "They picked the wrong house." "They sure did," I said. "We kept the roses. We kept the barn. We kept the land my family had tended for generations." The story spread farther than I expected. People emailed from other states and other countries. Strange as it sounds, the fight had made us a kind of lighthouse, a place people point to when they talk about standing up. If you're watching this from somewhere far away, thanks for listening. If anyone ever shows up at your door claiming authority they don't have, remember 2 things. Document everything, And don't let fear make your decisions for you. Sometimes the quiet, boring work of records and testimony will do more than a fist ever could. And if they still come at you with violence, protect the people you love. This story is ours now. We tell it so others don't become easy marks. And if you want, I can break this into audio-friendly parts or adapt it for a video script. Whatever helps you share it.